Hello there, John Cross speaking here, host of the PM Entertainment Podcast, and back for another one of my YouTube reviews of the Blu-rays that are being released by terror-vision.com of the early City Lights Entertainment horror films of Richard Pepin and Joseph Merhi, later of PM Entertainment. On this episode, or on this video, whatever you want to call it, we are going to be reviewing The Newlydeads. The Newlydeads, which got a beautiful Blu-ray from terror-vision.com. Here is the alternate cover. It's from 1988. It's a weird monster, zombie, slasher. I don't know. It's a mad hybrid of three main different genres. Sort of the monster genre, tangentially the zombie genre, the shape-shifting monster, weird, dreamlike, whatever genre, and then slasher. I mean, on the surface, it's a slasher, but as we get into the plot, strange stuff is afoot. And I don't know that it's ever completely worked out what's going on. And that's maybe part of the charm of The Newlydeads. So, a little paraphrasing of the plot then. We start off and a transvestite is checking into a hotel, which is sort of all these suites and beautiful kind of cabins in the woods. And the owner takes them up to the suite and is showing them around when it becomes clear that the owner and the transvestite are sort of seducing each other. They kiss. The owner finds out at that point that they are a man dressed as a woman, and this surprises him or shocks him or disgusts him or whatever. He gets enraged, kills said transvestite in a sort of a slapping match, but then he grabs something and stabs the transvestite. The transvestite dies. He covers it up. He shuts the cabin down. 15 years later, he is getting married at the same location while also running the hotel, while also the hotel is open, and apparently it's overbooked, but he's having a wedding there, but it's really just him and his wife. It's so weird. You don't really know what's happening. Anyway, he's having a wedding, and during that wedding, the zombified ghost killer of the transvestite person that he killed 15 years before comes back and starts to wreak havoc. Essentially, then after that, everyone who checks into the hotel, who is there to get married, or is there to fall in love, or is there for a dirty weekend, or is there, in the case of the clairvoyant. No, you heard that right. There is a clairvoyant in this film. City Lights, they just whip in a clairvoyant. It's fantastic. Is there because she believes that she is going to be able to find and fix the murdering situation that's happening, because she's seen it all in her head. She's like, I think people are going to die here, so we have to stay here. And her husband doesn't believe any of it, even though presumably he's been living with her for a while. And there's even a bit later on when some cops admit that she actually helped solve a crime using her clairvoyance, and yet still her husband doesn't believe her, which is sort of a little odd, because you would think, well, wouldn't you believe her if she had solved the crime of a missing boy? But apparently not. Apparently the husband doesn't believe anything, even though the husband goes along with her, stays at the hotel, and witnesses lots of bloodshed and murder. It gets really crazy, but basically it boils down to, as I said, a zombified killer chasing, haunting, and killing people at a kind of woodland resort, and then it ends. And that's really it. I mean, there's lots of other things that are sort of odd about the movie. All the different couples are pretty odd. The movie's pretty sleazy. It's one of those things where they're like, well, it needs killing and a lot of nudity, so let's just do that then. And sure enough, there's a lot of nudity and there's a lot of killing, there's a lot of sex scenes, including one featuring Doug Jones. And for people who don't know Doug Jones's name, I'm presuming most horror fans know Doug Jones's name, but for people who are not familiar with Doug Jones, he is predominantly known at this point for portraying most of the thin, tall, weird, spindly monsters and creatures in Guillermo del Toro movies, such as Pan's Labyrinth. I believe he's the guy with the eyes, and in his hands, and in the shape of water, he is the creature who gets it on with the human woman. And plenty of other things. Look up Doug Jones. He's done plenty of stuff, lots of creature effects, lots of stunt stuff, lots of acting. So yeah, Doug Jones is well known now. But back when this was made, this was essentially like Joseph giving him his first opportunity. And he does bring Doug back for one PM film. Doug has an appearance very briefly in The Magic Kid, which is sort of the No Retreat, No Surrender, Karate Kid type film that PM Entertainment made with Don the Dragon Wilson. And of course, the martial arts prodigy Ted Jan Roberts, who was in a ton of PM Entertainment sort of kids martial arts films. So yeah, so this film is intriguing for having Doug Jones's first performance in it. And what a performance it is. It's sort of quite, it's sort of odd because he's obviously very tall and thin and kind of gaunt looking, as he himself admits in the fantastic interview that is on the disc. If there's a reason to pick up the disc apart from the movie and just curiosity and your love of Joe and Rick and other stuff like that, another reason to pick it up is a great interview with Doug Jones. And I just wanted to say bravo, Doug. You didn't need to participate in this release, but I'm so glad that you did. I love it when actors who are now much more successful in bigger movies and things like that don't shy away from their past. So good for you, Doug. Fantastic interview. Love to see it on the disc. The movie itself, now, according to IMDb, it's the movie that comes out right before Hollowgate. It's also, in this case, co-written and directed by Joseph Merhi, and shot and produced by Rick Pepin, and edited by Paul Volk. So we're starting to get, this is sort of more of the PM crew working on this one, as opposed to Hollowgate, which is sort of Ray DiZazzo and Addison Randall and sort of other people. Not that Rick and Joe weren't involved, but obviously that's a different kind of look, feel, storyline, characters, all the rest of it. It's a lot different than this. And I think what I miss here compared to Hollowgate is that while there are multiple characters, multiple couples, and multiple sort of, I don't know, quirks with those couples that attempt to make the characters interesting. So, for example, like one is a British punk rocker and his girlfriend, and they're just about to go on tour, and are they going to get married? One is a priest who is like permanently drunk. One is an old couple going deaf who want to renew their vows. One is, as I said, the clairvoyant and her husband, and so on and so on and so on. There were kind of like lots of couples, and they're kind of given interesting kind of quirks and characters. But sadly, that's kind of where the exploration of any of that stops. Whereas Hollowgate is kind of fascinating in its devotion to like focusing on each of the characters and giving them kind of scenes to, even as I said, like the attorneys who never come back into the film even get a scene where they kind of all have characters and opinions and morals to play. In this, sadly, most of the characters are kind of one note, reduced really just to whatever kind of quirk or character trait they're given, and beyond that, not really given a lot of satisfactory build-up or character arcs at all. They're really just fodder for the crazy ghoul, and sometimes not even fodder for the crazy ghoul. Sometimes they just show up and then disappear, or show up and, you know, maybe they reoccur later in the movie, but not much. And so it's certainly messier than Hollowgate. It's certainly rougher around the edges than Hollowgate. But what it does have is just the usual kind of PM way of doing things, which is we understand what is required of the genre, right? And we understand that within the genre, especially in 88, so then probably making it in 87, we're way past the kind of golden age of slashers, and before the kind of uber meta slashers of the late 80s, 90s. So we're sort of slap bang in a bit of a no man's land. I mean, slashers are still popular, and we're still kind of getting sequels coming out and things like that. But in general, it's not an era known for the best of the slashers that people would consider kind of the late 70s through into the early 80s. We've bypassed that a little bit, but we've had enough of those that they're like, well, we have to have we have to have kind of a weird sexual quirk like Sleepaway Camp. All right, we'll make the killer a transvestite. Now, I'm not saying that being a transvestite or being trans or anything like that is a weird sexual quirk. I'm saying that in the 80s, in the movies at that time, those were reasons enough to drive someone crazy. I would argue that actually it's society's perception of those people that drives those people crazy, because I would not be able to stand up to the criticism, the bigotry, the ridicule, the hatred, everything else that these people have to endure on a daily basis. And I can't imagine the strength of having to endure that on a daily basis. But back in the 80s, it is sad to say, but it is the case that being a transvestite, anything like that, that was explored in slasher movies, that was reason enough to make someone a villain, or to make someone a killer, or to bring someone back 15 years later as a crazy zombie. But it is symptomatic also of slasher films. That is often the thing. There is no real explanation as to why 15 years, like this zombie doesn't come back for 15 years. And when they do come back, there's no real explanation of their powers either. They are a zombie, but they're able to like shapeshift into people. There's plenty of occasions in the movie where the zombie shapeshifts into someone that particular character would want to see. And even there's one occasion where the zombie killer is able to make a weapon immediately appear in their hand out of nowhere. They just put their hand up and the next thing you know, there's a dagger that appears there. So this zombie has wild powers, but apparently, as we find out later on by the clairvoyant who apparently halfway through the movie suddenly understands all of this. Like initially the clairvoyant is just like, I think someone's going to get killed at this thing. We need to stop. We need to go, blah, 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 figure this out, etc. But at a certain point, the clairvoyant then gets together with the owner of the hotel, who is the target, the main target of the zombie killer, is the owner of the hotel. And apparently it's because the zombie killer is so berserk with lust for the owner of this hotel, which is completely baffling if you've ever seen the actor playing this character. But okay, we're going to go with the fact that this transvestite is berserk with lust for this owner of the hotel. And because of that, they are killing everyone all of the time in his world and going after him as well. I don't know why, if they can be anywhere that they want to be and they can make weapons appear in their hands and whatever, why they bother with all the games and tricks that they end up doing. Why they just don't show up in his bedroom at night and kill him, or kill his wife or fiance or whatever. There's also a weird bit where even though the whole, like 15 years later, it's the owner getting married and everything centers around his wedding, none of the guests stick around. We don't see any of the guests ever again. And not only that, but the maid of the hotel even admits to the clairvoyant, oh yeah, the owner sleeps around all the time. Like he sleeps with a different woman every night. So why is he getting married? And why does he care that much about his wife, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So there's sort of a lot of things in the movie that don't make a lot of sense. Even though it's on Blu-ray, it kind of looks like a VHS rip, like a cleaned up VHS tape. And I don't know with city lights like PM whether there are actually 16 millimeter film cans anywhere. I know that with PM, there are all the Blu-rays that are being produced by Focus Media, for example, in Switzerland are from at least reels of film. Even if they're a print rather than the negative, it's still coming off film, so you can do more to clean it up. This is unfortunately a VHS rip, but I did get the feeling that if we had the 16 mil and if we'd kind of cleaned it up and this was widescreen and was looked nicer and all the rest of it, that Rick's cinematography, we would be seeing more of that from this film. There's definitely an inkling in this movie that there's some really nice cinematography happening. The ghoulish makeup on the zombie killer is nicely effective and weird and creepy. Although I'm not going to say that this movie's scary, because it isn't. This movie hasn't really locked in on how to kind of create tension and pay it off. But it's certainly surreal. The effects are certainly interesting. There is some good gore in the film. There are some creative deaths in the film. There's the weird sort of middle-aged clairvoyant woman running around, and she's quite a lot of fun. There's the occasional drunk priest taking hits off punk rockers' joints and swearing a lot and swigging from a flask. He's entertaining for the few scenes that he's in the movie. if you're a fan of slasher films, if you're a fan of 80s shot on 16mm or shot on video, under the radar movies, and if you're a fan of Rick and Joe, I think it's definitely worth still picking up. Obviously, I would try and get hold of Hollowgate before I get hold of this, but I don't know. I think once you're in it and you're looking for some filmmakers with that kind of 16mm, weird, surreal, indie aesthetic, I think that the early City Lights films are proving to be, just from the couple of Blu-rays I've watched and the couple of tapes I've watched, they are proving to be an interesting source of just sort of, as I said, two filmmakers kind of figuring it out on the hoof early on. So while I can't necessarily give this the unabashed support that I gave Hollowgate, I'm still very glad that I own it. I'm still very glad that I've watched it. It is one that I will put in again. It's certainly one that I'll want to show friends. I'm always looking for another kind of vein of indie filmmakers to champion, and it's nice to see the early City Lights films kind of slot right in there with kind of the Don Dolas and Matt Farleys and things of the world. If you see the Troma logo, by the way, either on the disc or on the opening of the movie, these weren't Troma movies. They were distributed by Troma, but these were not movies funded by Troma. These were made initially back in the 80s by Joe and Rick and funded themselves. So don't go in expecting a Troma movie is what I mean. Although it has elements of a Troma movie, it's an independent film that they ended up distributing. Support terror-vision.com. Go pick up the Blu-ray. Why not? It's a lot of fun. Let's keep these releases coming, and I will keep reviewing them as long as they keep putting them out. So thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share, all that good stuff. And subscribe to the PM Entertainment podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. We've got some great episodes coming down the pike. So thanks ever so much, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.